morning, everyone. My name is Joseph Bednarik, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this virtual service at Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a loving, spirited, and inclusive community. We begin our service this morning by taking a moment to acknowledge that the water, the land, and the shorelines located here in Port Townsend, Washington, and the surrounding environs are the traditional territory of the Sklallam and Chemakum people. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors, and we vow to help restore and sustain their homelands, the flora, and the fauna. In a moment, we will be lighting the chalice here in the sanctuary, and you are invited to light a candle wherever you may be. And first, let's bring ourselves into this shared moment with the ringing of our chime. It is indeed good to be together. And let us now turn our attention to Shelley Brown, who will play our prelude. Thank you, Shelley. That was gorgeous. We light the chalice this morning with these words from Isolde Kurtz. Time isn't measured by length, but by depth. And the opening words this morning from the Italian writer Diego Valeri. It's a short poem entitled An Eye for Miracles. You who have an eye for miracles, regard the bud now appearing on the bare branch of the fragile young tree. It's a mere dot, a nothing, but already it's a flower, already a fruit, already its own death and resurrection. And we now invite Beau Ohlgren, the Director of Family Ministry, to share Time for All Ages. Beau.
Good morning, everyone. Today, Joseph's sermon is about the second best time. And Shaggington and I got to thinking about the choices and chances in life and wanted to share this story by a wonderful author and illustrator set, Kobe Yamada and May Bessam, who shared an idea with us last year and this year challenge us to think about, what do you do with a chance? One day, I got a chance. It just seemed to show up. It acted like it knew me, as if it wanted something, and I didn't know why it was here. What do you do with a chance? I wondered. It fluttered around me. It brushed up against me. It circled me as if it wanted me to grab it. I started to reach for it, but I was unsure and I pulled back. And so it flew away. I thought about it a lot. I wished I had taken my chance. I realized I had wanted it, but I still didn't know if I had the courage. When another chance came round, I wasn't so sure, but I decided to try. I went to reach for it, but I missed and I fell. I was embarrassed. I felt foolish. It seemed like everyone was looking at me, and I decided I never wanted to feel this way again. So after that, whenever a chance came along, I ignored it. And the more I ignored them, the less they came around. Until one day I noticed that I hadn't seen a chance in quite a while. It was as if they had all disappeared. I started to worry, what if I don't get another chance? I know I acted like I didn't care, but the truth was I did, and I still wanted to take a chance, but I was afraid. And I wasn't sure if I would ever be brave enough. Then I thought, maybe I don't have to be brave all the time. Maybe I just need to be brave for a little while at the right time. And I realized it was up to me. I promised myself that if I ever got another chance, I wasn't going to hold back. If I got another chance, I was going to be ready. And then, one seemingly ordinary day, I saw something shining far off in the distance. Is it possible? I had cried. Could this be my chance? I had to find out. I ran as hard and as fast as I could toward it. I don't know how to explain it, but the second I let go of my fears, I was full of excitement. It wasn't that I was no longer afraid, but now my excitement was bigger than my fear. And as I got closer, I could see that this was a really huge chance. But this time, I was ready. And as it came by, I reached out and grabbed it, and I held on with all my might. It felt so good to soar, to fly, to be free. I now see that when I hold back, I miss out. And I don't want to miss out. There's just so much I want to do and see and discover. So, what do you do with a chance? You take it, because it just might be the start of something incredible.
Good morning. My name is Onzie Stevens, and I have a couple pleasures. One of them is working again with Joseph. That's always a delight. And then I'd actually like to acknowledge and welcome all of you who may be visiting us this morning. We're really glad you're here with us today, and we'll hope you'll take this opportunity to tell us your name and where you're from, and do that in our live chat section. And we also hope that all of you will join us for our virtual coffee hour after today's service. If you don't have that link, it will be posted in the chat at the end of the service. Lastly, if you find this service useful or inspirational, hopefully both, please share the link with your friends and family. We really get great joy in widening the circle of our online community. So welcome, everyone. We're really pleased you're with us today. And now it's time for our offering. Today our offering will go to Bayside to support the opening of the second new Peter's Place. And if you don't remember what that is, you're going to find out in a minute, because here is Greer Gates to tell us more about the project.
Hi, my name is Greer Gates, and I am the Development Director at Bayside Housing and Services in Port Hadlock. I am so excited to be able to share with you a little bit about an upcoming community build that will be taking place that will be very similar to the 12-unit tiny house village that we wrapped up this last winter called Peter's Place. As we move into this spring build, some of our most present needs are people to donate their time and labor. So during our 12-unit build with Peter's Place, we know we had several QUUF members join, which we feel so blessed for. So if you feel that that's something that is a part of your abilities, we would love to have you join our team. To sign up for volunteering, you can visit baysidehousing.org/tinyhouses, and there's a link directly to sign up to volunteer. Some other pertinent needs as we get ready to move residents in once the build is complete, things like sleeping bags, blankets, pillows, lamps, small end tables, small chairs. Those are things that we've found the Peters Place residents really love and we feel would translate well into a new tiny house village. And of course, monetary donations are always welcome and very loved. All funding that is donated to the Tiny House Village will go directly to funding the build process. And after the build is complete, it will go towards operation costs. So making sure that we can continue to maintain this lovely village for these people to be able to continue our transitional housing. So for any additional information, please feel free to reach out, send an email to info@baysidehousing.org or visit our website, www.baysidehousing.org. Thank you and have a wonderful Sunday.
If you'd like to make a donation, and I'm sure after this little video you certainly will, you have three options. You can text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of your screen. Or you can go to QUUF.org and click on the word giving. Or, of course, you can simply mail us a check to QUUF with Bayside in the memo line. We'll now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Pat and Doug Rodgers perform Being Green.
It's not that easy being green, having to spend each day the color of the leaves, when I think it could be nicer being red or yellow or gold or something much more colorful like that. It's not easy being green. It seems you blend in with so many other ordinary things, and people tend to pass you over 'cause you're not standing out like flashy sparkles in the water or stars in the sky. But green is the color of spring, and green can be cool and friendly like, and green can be big like an ocean, or important like a mountain, or tall like a tree. When green is all there is to be, it could make you wonder why, but why wonder, why wonder? I am green and it'll do fine, it's beautiful and I think it's what I want to be.
Thank you, Doug and Pat, and good morning. Rick Cote, Elaine Nelson, Joyce Francis, Virginia Nixon, and I, the members of the nominating committee, are pleased to present the names of the candidates who will stand for election at the annual meeting on June 13th. For the Board of Trustees, each a 3-year term, are Larry Morrell, Sherry Modrow, and Liesl Slaybaugh. For the nominating committee, we're returning to staggered terms, so we have 2 different term lines. Julia Cochran will have a 3-year term, and Lloyd Westbrook a 2-year term. For the endowments committee, Stan Cummings. As per our bylaws, photos and biographies of each candidate will appear in the QUUF weekly updates and also on the nominating committee's webpage, beginning April 16th through June 11th. Our bylaws also allow for additional candidates. Interested parties shall specify which elective office they wish to seek and then may be named by petition of at least 25 members and submitted to the nominating committee at least 20 days before the annual meeting.
Thank you, Judy, very much for your report from the nomination committee. And now we have a special update, of course, on our pledge campaign. Woody Nibbler and our pledge campaign team would like to thank all of you that have pledged your green to help pay for our staff and programming for the next fiscal year. As Woody shows us on the logometer, we're up to 80% of our goal, which is wonderful. This is great, but we need to be even greener still. That last 20% of our goal is crucial to our being able to adequately restaff and open back up this fall. For those 175 households that we haven't heard from yet, please send in your pledge as soon as you can. And a little thank you ahead. And now we will share our joys and sorrows. As always, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And aren't we aware of that so much these days? So thus we place this first stone, thinking in particular of all the people in our lives, those that we know and those we don't, who are practicing simple acts of kindness every day to make the world a bit sweeter. The person who finds a lost hat and places it atop a fence post so it can be seen. Or your neighbor who rolls your garbage can out to the curb when you've forgotten. And the cashier who perhaps doesn't charge you for the apple because it's a little bruised. I know you all know these as acts of small kindness as well. And so may we bring these little acts of kindness into the world by placing a stone. And now, within our congregation, new members Pete and Mary Jane Ewin asked that we light a candle for their daughter-in-law, Christina, who will be undergoing brain surgery in Seattle on April 29th. Let us hold Christina and her entire family in our thoughts and prayers at this time. We light a candle of gratitude for Shelley Brown because this is her last day as one of our piano accompanimists. She's stepping away from the position to concentrate more fully on her art. We appreciate you, Shelley, and thank you so much for sharing your beautiful and sensitive piano playing with us. Kate Lohr and our music program folks have all expressed what a great pleasure it's been working with you. Thank you, Shelley. We've had a couple of birthdays this week. Happy birthday to Katy Franco and Celeste Pedersen, whose birthdays both fell on April 4th. And one that's not in here that I know, my landlord, Tim Manring, whose birthday is on April 7th. And to Rowan DeLuna, whose birthday was on April 6th. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows that have been called to our attention. but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed, but of no less importance. May we have a heart of compassion for those in pain and sorrow, and a heart that celebrates with those who rejoice. I invite you now into a moment of silence, which will be followed by a musical response.
The reading this morning is a poem entitled The Healing Time by Pesha Gertler from the anthology Claiming the Spirit Within. Finally, on my way to yes, I bump into all the places where I said no to my life. All the unintended wounds, the red and purple scars, those hieroglyphs of pain carved into my skin, my bones, those coded messages that send me down the wrong street again and again, where I find them, the old wounds, the old misdirections, and I lift them one by one, close to my heart, and I say, holy, holy. The special music this morning is Emily Barker's The Woman Who Planted Trees.
I can tell my age by the height of trees, by the years they've stood growing over me. When I was a girl, you planted seeds and cast your love forever over me. When the land was dry, no food to eat, when the soil was sick and the river weak, you took a spade, bare hands, bare feet, and sowed your love, roots down deep, in the cool dark shade, leaves sing your name, wild green tongues glisten. Your branches warm, my fingers weft, weave me through this gift you left. From a prison cell, you dreamt of trees, blood dried black upon your cheek. You didn't know around the world, people listened, people learned. Water returned, soil healed, hope restored with every yield. Trees grew high, years they've stood, growing over me.
What a wonderful song that was. And also, I just have to say, on the Quimper campus right now, there are cherry trees that are just fully in bloom. And it brings to mind the wisdom statement, of which this is the first sentence. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. And you do this quick memory check and you think back to whether you actually planted during the best time. Perhaps you didn't. And then there's that nagging, corrosive feeling of regret that begins to rise inside. You think, I blew it. I missed the best time. Or perhaps you did plant a tree. You think back to that day when you grabbed a shovel, you dug a hole, you placed roots in the earth, and then carefully scooped dirt with your bare hands back into the hole. You patted the soil gently. You savored that smell of the good earth. You were kind to a worm that uncovered during the process. And as you watered, you looked up and you saw two clouds floating by, realizing that you were engaged in a worldwide water cycle. You carefully fashioned a fence to protect the sapling from deer and lawnmowers, from weed whackers and other hazards. If you planted a fruit tree, say a cherry tree, you saw in your mind's eye the buds and the blossoms and the fruits of your future. 20 years later, witnessing your tree bloom once again, seeing the bees pollinate the blossoms, you are connected to every cherry blossom festival that has ever taken place over the past 2,000 years, a ritual where time is savored by watching the blossoms, where the most important thing is to stop being busy and to sit on a blanket amidst the trees, to sit on a blanket, sip a bit of sake, watch the cherry blossoms with friends and family, to relax among the trees and the blossoms and the breeze, and to feel that deeper pulse of life that we so often unconsciously just blast past with the demands of daily living. A cherry blossom ritual that calls you to be attentive and present inside your time. It's an annual spring ritual. It's driven by the season that bursts with renewal and has inspired thousands upon thousands of picnics and parties of paintings and poems with cherry blossoms as the central theme, like this haiku by Onitsura. They blossom, and then we gaze, and then the blooms scatter, and then... In this brief poem, like your brief life, the flow of time is ceaseless, with each line containing verbs whose life actions through time blossom, gaze, scatter, with the phrase "and then" separating each verb. They blossom, and then we gaze, and then the blooms scatter, and then. And the poem itself doesn't really end, because what follows that last "and then" is an ellipsis, ... which opens the reader to consider their possible future, the next verb in their life story, their stream of time. Now, this small ending phrase, "and then," followed by an ellipsis, it's profound. It both connects the actions of the present and propels into the future. The "and then" is asking directly, okay, here you gazed, and you saw the cherry blossoms, you witnessed the blooms scatter on the breeze. What now, friend? What lessons did you learn with these trees that you planted 20 years ago? What did you learn from this season's blossoms? What now, as you and your friends scatter back to daily life? So let's keep that small phrase, "and then," close at hand and close at heart throughout our time together this morning. And now pivoting from cherry trees to conifers, maybe the trees that you planted 20 years ago were thousands upon thousands of Douglas fir saplings, with you expertly wielding your hodad on steep slopes as part of a planting crew on a restoration project, engaged literally in hand-to-hand combat with the brutal forces of global climate change. By you reforesting swaths of denuded mountainside, working your body hard to help heal the harsh capitalistic wounds of a clear cut. Or maybe you were like my housemate Dave, who went one step farther than planting trees, and he actually lived with a crew in the forest as a professional cone picker, climbing high into ancient conifers to gather cones to bring home or bring back to nurseries so the seeds could be collected and planted, saplings started and cared for, and then the saplings brought into trucks to the restoration crew to plant on the steep slopes of a clear cut, while the distant rumble of log trucks could be heard. Log trucks carrying massive trees whose growth rings counted in the hundreds. And then the crew kept planting. And while I use these specific examples, I want to be perfectly clear. The phrase plant a tree, it's a metaphor for any and all long-term visionary projects that can be measured in annual growth rings: raising a family, recovering from an addiction, nurturing a relationship, saving for a rainy day, healing from trauma, growing a business, giving up bad habits, making investments, learning a language. We could go on and on and on. These are all trees that require time to grow and mature and bear fruit, or cones, or acorns. And just listen to those verbs: raising, nurturing, saving, growing, giving up, healing, making, getting, building, learning, recovering. All these actions, they all require time. And a long-term project also requires grit and soul, love and faith, and more than a little good luck. And what if you didn't, quote unquote, plant a tree 20 years ago? What if you flat out missed the best time for a particular project? Can you feel that regret seeping in? Or what if you planted a tree, or even trees, and they didn't survive? The roots and the soil, the weather, the lawnmowers, the root-chewing varmints, they all conspired against you and your dreams, conspired against you and your best efforts. If this is the case, I hope you lived well as you possibly could through those troubled times and came away from the experience with some valuable life lessons. Or, like my grandmother used to say, that she earned her PhD in the school of hard knocks. And maybe, or not maybe, we need to be sure that we all suffer them. Hard knocks. The trees that we planted with vision of a certain future in mind, and that future never arrived. The trees that we planted at the wrong time, in the wrong place, perhaps for the wrong reasons. This is all part of living. And if we're open and reflective, there are lessons to be learned. And many, many common life sayings bear this out, such as this short list of 7. You live and you learn. Fall down 7, get up 8. You have to break some eggs to make an omelet. Chalk that one up to experience. Another bus will come. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. And this one has a special warning. Beware of the unlived life. Now that phrase, beware of the unlived life, certainly echoes for me in the first sentence of that wisdom saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Now the thought of missing the best time is enough to give me that deep sense of regret. Although the next sentence in the wisdom saying, and this is why it's called a wisdom saying, breaks through like a sunbeam between dark storm clouds. The second best time is today. So put together, we have this. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Now, what an amazing thunderclap of realization and possibility. Today, right now, this Sunday, is the second best time. And how glorious is that? Who cares that the best time is long gone? This is exactly how to melt regret. And this is exactly what happened to Scrooge when he woke up that Christmas morning and realized that his ghostly visitations, while frightening, also gifted him in the morning light with a profound awareness that it was not too late to do something about his life, to make a major course correction. And it was not too late to loosen his tight heart and to become a fount of generosity, to change his behavior from misanthropic miser to a beloved citizen. Scrooge woke up from a dream, and he stepped giddy into the second best time. And perhaps this morning we can step into our second best time with the blessed gift of a metaphorical sapling to plant. So this morning is yours to consider. What is your tree? Don't let regret seize up your heart. Reach for that shovel and glory in getting your hands a little dirty. Holding that wisp of a sapling, the wisdom from the wisdom saying blooms forth. Your life, as expressed within your body, on your earth, inside your time, you are planting at the precise center point of a 40-year moment. The best time is gone 20 years ago. Here in this place, there is no blossoming cherry tree for you to gaze at. The second best time is called today, right now. And as you place the roots of your sapling into the earth, you are living in the best time for this tree 20 years hence. This is a brave and visionary act. And when you wash your hands from that planting and discover a bit of dirt under your nails, just do yourself a favor and just keep that dirt there for a few days as a little reminder of your best time. And then, you realize that it is always this way. The second best time is still time. Looking backward, today is always the second best time. Looking forward, today is always the best time. And it is important to note that both are categorized as best time. Best, second best. Who cares? Best is best. What a time-rich world we have right now. And just for fun, what if we push the concept of second best to that edge of time, to last best? What shall we do at the end of time, of our time, when the world slips away? We will all face it one of these days, our final moments on this earth, hopefully not the last moments of earth itself. And this reminds me of a profound and powerful poem by W.S. Merwin called Place, with its life-affirming opening lines. On the last day of the world, I would want to plant a tree. I love the power of that couplet, the bravery of tending to a living being that requires abundant time to grow and mature, when there is the realization that there are only hours left. To me, those words are profoundly spiritual because they call for us to transcend the end of the world, to transcend the end of our time on earth by tending to young life in the present, in this moment, because truthfully, the present, this moment, our today, is all the time we ever have. And because life and time are the most precious gifts that we have been given on this earth, nurturing life in time is an act of supreme grace. And so here is the entirety of the poem. It's barely 80 words, and you can think about these 80 words for the rest of your time on earth. Place by W.S. Merwin. On the last day of the world, I would want to plant a tree. What for, not the fruit? The tree that bears the fruit is not the one that was planted. I want the tree that stands in the earth for the first time, with the sun already going down, and the water touching its roots, in the earth full of the dead, and the clouds passing one by one over its leaves. Now there is so much to unpack here, though I will focus only on 2 stanzas. The tree that bears the fruit is not the one that was planted. I want the tree that stands in the earth for the first time. Now remember, this planting happens on the last day of the world. There are no 20 years unfurling ahead of this tree, and this tree will likely never bear fruit. The person planting the tree will never gaze upon blossoms or compose poems inspired by their beauty. This tree is destined to end with the world later that day. Now the poet-planter knows this, and many would argue that this act is pointless, to plant a living tree in the face of certain death. And alas, all trees, metaphorical or otherwise, have been planted in the face of certain death. Rather, I believe that this act is a profound prayer. It's tending to new life in the last wisps of time. Imagine giving your whole self to the project, feeling the soil in your hands as you scoop the dirt back into the earth, into the hole, and getting that good dirt under your fingernails. Like the poet, you look skyward and see clouds passing one by one, and you will water enough to give the roots a good soak. You realize once again that you are engaged in a worldwide water cycle. And to close, I'd like to share a quote that I recently heard that resonates strongly with the themes this morning. Supposedly, this is a wisdom saying of the great mind from the Chinese sage Confucius. We have 2 lives. The second begins when we realize we only have one. And then, Amen. And now let us join our voices with Shelley Brown, Al Thompson, Sarah Gustner Hewitt, and JES Schumacher as they lead us in our closing hymn, We Are Building a New Way. Thanks.
Please join us in singing. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
Thank you, Shelley, Al, Sarah, and Jess. Now invite you to join us in the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again. Thanks. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope that you will also join us for the virtual coffee hour, the link for which is in the chat section on your screen. And to close, let us turn our attention to Shelley Brown as she plays her last postlude in this small spot. See you, everyone.